I'm glad I didn't have to film this twice. I was 2 minutes in. What's going on, YouTube? I'm aware that I look like a fucking mess. Bulking up. Have been working nonstop, but we'll lean max, we'll looks max again. But anyways, um, I bought my dream car like 7, 8 months ago. I kind of got miserable afterwards. So, well, for a little bit. So in this video, I kind of want to run through that experience. And if you're thinking about spending someone's yearly salary on a vehicle, perhaps this video can offer you a new perspective and maybe not sway you away from buying it, but help you understand the why behind your buying it, because it took me spending somebody's yearly salary on a car to understand why I bought it psychologically, what I was going to fulfill, and ultimately like what I was trying to chase after that I guess at the time I wasn't getting from maybe entrepreneurship or academics or relationships around me. But we'll run through everything from the beginning and kind of what I've learned, and maybe this could help you reconsider or at least make smarter financial decisions and not buy a depreciating asset. So first thing is, when it came to the origin of the idea, there was 3 stages: resistance, nurture, and eventually buy-in. So with resistance, when this idea was first brought up to me about buying this car, Mercedes-Benz, by the way, it's a pretty cool car. I do love the car, but that's besides the point right now. But I had a lot of resistance to it. Reason being is because, well, number one, I never, really spent this kind of money on a car before, but also just the financial burden that came with it. And eventually, if your internal world and you psychologically do not have some kind of self-image, and you're not strong in who you are, and you're not strong where you stand, if outside forces portray a different sensory stimulus, a different idea psychologically, and they promote that upon you, then eventually you will cave in, or at least your values and your views will bend. And that's exactly what happened to me. And eventually I started forming this belief system around needing the fucking car. Sorry about my language. But I formed a belief system around needing it. And I was nurtured, I guess you could say, kind of like how you nurture a lead or nurture a client. I was nurtured into buying this car, just through no one's bad intentions, by the way, but just talking to people around, asking people about it, people who brought it up to me initially. It was kind of like nurture, if you look at it that way, not in a negative, like, manipulative way, but just more so that it started to alter my belief systems. You have this part of your brainstem. I believe it's the brainstem in psychology, we refer to it, called the RAS, reticular activating system or activation system, which is kind of like your brain's filter. Now, if you've ever drove on the road and maybe you remember when you started seeing Cybertrucks, you probably started seeing more Cybertrucks right after that. It's basically your brain's filter for information, and it's very hard for the RAS to see information that's outside or out of alignment with your beliefs. And that's just because you haven't had neural pathways firing in accordance and in respondence positively to things you're out of align with belief-wise. But also, it just kind of confirms any biases that you've had. So for example, like if I start looking out for BMWs, I will start seeing more BMWs on the road due to the RAS. And this works the same exact way with your beliefs. If you have a certain belief, if you think money is scarce and it's hard to come by, you will find certain things very hard when it comes to business. Other things, if you suck at academics and you're not a good student and that's just your set of beliefs, you're going to find it very hard to do things that are out of alignment with that, like studying and being a straight A student. But at that point, I wasn't really deciding, I was being guided by the RAS. And eventually I began to form associations with this car. And the car stopped being an object. I'm reading off my notes. But the car became meaning. And in psychology, we have this thing called classical conditioning, discovered by this guy named Pavlov with his dog. But the same way Pavlov created the association with the ring of a bell and the food, I created an association with this car and missing parts of myself, or parts of myself that I thought I would find through this car and buying this car. So for example, you may associate your partner with love, you may associate a game with fun, and you may see certain things and associate other certain things with it. The same way when Pavlov's dog heard the bell ring, that was an association with food and satisfying that hunger. I began to associate this car with like peace, belonging, want. It had nothing to do with the exterior, the interior of the car, the ambient lighting, or anything like that. But I genuinely began to classically condition myself, and I thought this car would solve business, scaling the business beyond 20 grand a month, you know, dating, relationships, friendships, having fucking aura, all that shit. And all I do is kind of reinforce this in my mind, and my RAS, reticular activating system, just filtered it out. And then there's also in like research and you know, I guess psychology, we have this term called confirmation bias. Basically, it's just filtering out, you know, any other information and choosing to only look at information which aligns with what you believe. That's exactly what I did, and I eventually started to justify the reasons on why I needed this car, and I justified it in the way that it would fulfill these parts of myself. I didn't even know what an AMG was or a V6 engine was, like no joke, till like a month before I bought the car. I was so clueless on cars. I was just driving like a Toyota before, to be honest with y'all. But anyways, when I'm gonna turn courses in this video real quick. I know we spoke about the origin of the idea and classical conditioning. I want to, you know, also you to look out right now for perhaps maybe you've wanted some kind of car, or you wanted something. Watch how you've created associations with that thing, and then this higher form of yourself. Just watch those associations you create, and I'll get deeper into the video with what I mean with that. But you're buying these shiny objects, you're buying these vehicles for the thing that you think it'll do to you fulfillment wise, which, by the way, usually doesn't end up that way, at least not in my case. But one thing I also wish I understood better was attachment styles at the time. In psychology, we have like 4 types of attachment, I believe, but there's 2 that stand out: anxious, preoccupied, and fearful, avoidant. And you basically see some crossover traits in both of these attachment styles. But anxious, preoccupied, you know, those anxious, clingy, and just find things to do to keep themselves busy. Fearful, avoidant is just, you know, those that have that fear of abandonment. If I understood attachment styles better, I would understand that I was just buying this car for an anxious, preoccupied attachment style, which many entrepreneurs, you know, highly achieving academics tend to have. And I was buying this car for this attachment style. And if I just, you know, understood that, then I think I would have maybe made some different decision. I guess from an attachment style things, I was literally buying the reassurance that I needed. And what I've been able to do with entrepreneurship is just give that to myself through work. But it got to the point where it's like I hit 20 grand a month for the first time back in March, April, I believe. And work wasn't really doing that for me to the extent that it was when maybe I hit 10 grand a month for the first time. Even though I liked work and I actually enjoy work more now than I did then, but work wasn't doing that. So I was literally buying the reassurance that my attachment style needed. So if I was just able to deconstruct that, and if I made a conscious decision from there, I may have made a different decision. And by the way, as I'm making this video, this isn't a poor me kind of thing. This is just me kind of psychoanalyzing myself and why I made an impulsive decision at 21. And just to not sway you away, like I said, from buying something, but just to encourage you to ask yourself why. Why are you doing it? diving into like the next part here, this goes to self-reflection and ego deconstruction, I believe. Let me see. Yeah. So in psychology, the ego is not, I'm trying not to be so robotic and read off my notes, but ego is not this arrogant thing. Ego is, who am I? How do I stay safe? How do I perform and regulate discomfort, belonging? That's what the ego is. And we have attachment style, we have my RAS, and now we have my ego here. And the ego doesn't form randomly. Rather, the ego is built on like a foundation of identity, typically when we're young. And tying back into like the whole attachment style thing, I also, screw the script, I also bought this thing for my ego in an arrogant way partly, but then also in a need, belonging way here. And and I'm gonna try to articulate this as best as I can, but the scary part about buying like these things, I guess you could say, or at least the scariest part for me, and this could be subjective and different to you, is you start to, I guess, become a slave to the people in the crowd. And the best kind of metaphor that I could give for this is you're a player and you're in the field, and then there's people in the stands, which are the crowd, which the crowd is those which you've wanted the approval from, that you bought the car for, I guess you could say, in some sense. And then you're the player in the stands performing. If you start to perform differently, meaning if you decide to say, hey, I don't want to drive fancy cars anymore, I just want to go all in on business, I want to go all in on business. I want to go from 20K to 50K a month. The players in the crowd, the people in the stands stop applauding you. And if your internal world is shallow, so if your ego is fragile, like we spoke about, if you have an anxious driven attachment style, and if you're not firm in who you are and your beliefs, the external world will shape and shake your internal world. So you will then start to become a slave to buying these toys, because the only thing that gives you psychological gratification of stroking your ego, fulfilling your attachment style need, and then aligning with your confirmation biases and beliefs, is the approval you will get from other people and normies because you bought an expensive thing. If that makes sense. Another way I could word this is, when you buy these things, normies and NPCs, or even just people in general, right? I don't want to criticize nobody in a negative way. People will give you attention, and the car or the thing itself will get you attention. If they only gave you attention when you got that thing, then that's probably not the attention that you want. And the people like Zuckerberg and Bezos, they're not doing all that shit. They're just building businesses, they're building empires. And when they see that flashy shit, they don't really care much. It just impresses regular, normal people, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with being a normal, regular person, but it just impresses them. And when you impress them, and when they compliment on these things you've bought or your materialistic achievements, it does stroke your ego, it does feel good, and it does psychologically satisfy some part of you. And if you're not getting that satisfaction psychologically from anywhere else, whether it be business, a fulfilling romantic relationship, or another part of your life, the external will shake you, and you will become a slave to what the people in the crowd do, and then your performance on the field will change. And that's because the people in the crowd will change who you are. And now you're constantly in this slave mode of just buying things, for the sake of buying things and for the sake of what other people will say about you and what their perception of you will be. And the second you try to stop, you're going to feel some cognitive distortion and you're going to feel a cognitive dissonance. And that's because the one thing, which is stroking your ego, feeding your attachment style, feeding your RAS, the beliefs which it already has, and confirming your biases, the one thing, which is the people in the crowd, will then disappear. Because the second that you change who you are and it does not align with the perceptions that they have about you, then you'll stop then your psychology will stop getting what it needs. So I think you could sort this out through therapy. I think you could also work. I feel like just the more money I make, the more I just work on my business, the more I just get better as an entrepreneur, the more it kind of solves a lot of these problems around me that I have, and the better I'm able to kind of tackle these psychological things and handle them. But just a word of encouragement for you in case you're, or even not just a word of encouragement, just some other thoughts for you in case you're thinking of buying some car. Probably will get some hate, but that's cool. This is just my perspective and my opinion. I'm not saying don't buy it. I'm just perhaps encouraging you to possibly ask why. And yeah, I know we also look tired and exhausted. We will look smacks soon. We will look smacks soon. I gained like 10, 15 pounds. My hair is growing all over the place, and I am physically exhausted, so I'll lock back in. Y'all see it over the next few months. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. No whiteboard in this one, just straight me, raw. If y'all want more of this, let me know.